What's up everyone, it's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and this is going to be a pretty small video with a pretty minor topic basically, but there's a little bit of a talking point I want to put in on it, which is why I'm making this. It's not usually noteworthy within itself, but the kind of implications and ramifications of it are, in my opinion. So, first off, what am I talking about? Square Enix have just announced that they're going to be patching in HDR support for Hitman Season 1 and whatever follows in Season 2 and beyond. So, you know the game that launched last year, the episodic game, takes place with like Sapienza and all those places. If you have a PS4, a PS4 Pro, an Xbox One S, that's right, an Xbox One S, or a PC with a HDR10 compatible TV or a HDR10 compatible PC monitor, as of January 31st, when the patch comes in, you will have the expanded color palette of HDR10, high dynamic range. Now, one will argue that the benefits of HDR10 are lost on non-4K displays, or at least non-4K native displays. I mean, I'm just thinking of the PS4, the base PS4 when I make that comment. But regardless, you're getting the expanded color palette, which is the big thing. Now, I can understand why Square Enix in particular are patching in Hitman. They have already said that the next upcoming, we call it cycle or season of Hitman, is going to be similar to the Hitman we have now, Hitman Season 1 or whatever you want to call it. So allegedly it's going to be based on the same format. It's still going to be episodic and all. Apparently it's just going to add, say, like a second season pass to the base game, so you won't have two separate games or anything like that. Sure, that could change and all, but it makes sense that they would have HDR support for their upcoming game as well as the existing game that they're both kind of like based in exactly the same of. So that makes perfect sense. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this, or the reason why I'm making this video, is not just to make people aware of the announcement for January 31st HDR support on Hitman for PS4, PS4 Pro, Xbox One S, and PC. No, the reason I'm making this one is I want to talk about the fact that it is good and nice to see that some companies are updating some of their games to HDR support. Now, like I mentioned a minute ago, it's understandable why Square Enix is doing it in the case of Hitman more so than some of their other games. I do know they've patched in HDR into some of their existing games as it is, so that's promising. But at the same time, it's nice to see that developers and publishers are patching in HDR support for games that may no longer get support in general. Sure, some of them will be big tent pole franchises and things like that. Let's look at the PS4 Pro when that first launched. Sony obviously have The Last of Us and The Last of Us Remastered, which is a huge, it's going to be a huge franchise, excuse me if I could talk, and it's a huge title. And the fact is, they patched in HDR, they patched in PS4 Pro 4K, native 4K 30 FPS, and then they fucked up the 60 FPS mode. But either way, they still have HDR support patched into one of their bigger titles. But sure, it's nice to see that other companies and other developers and publishers are actually putting them into what could essentially be some of their higher end franchises, but may not be essentially overall extremely high-end franchises in the same aspect of it. So it's nice to see that publishers and developers are actually doing that. Which brings me to the final wrap-up part of this video. So what other games would you like to see existing as it is now with HDR support? You know, games that don't have it. What upcoming games that have not specifically announced HDR support would you also like to see with HDR support? I know personally my TV and monitor do not support HDR, but whenever I do get around to upgrading them, I already have my TV picked out, which has 4K HDR10, and I already have my eye on potentially a new monitor, but PC hardware to power that kind of stuff just isn't there yet. So we'll see how it goes anyway. But yeah, let me know what games you'd like to see that don't already have HDR, or will you be taking advantage of this? Do you think HDR is a fad? Do you think it's overrated? Whatever, anything regarding HDR, I want to hear your opinion on it. Let me know all that in the comments section below. hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter, details in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the rest of the videos in my channel.